It's Wednesday, late in the afternoon. I did this smelt on Sunday. This is the first time I've gotten home in the light so that I could look and see what I've got. So this thing was always intended to be a single-use item. So let's take it apart and see what's what. Look at that, there's my tape. It's still clay. I assume this might be china, but it's not. It's still clay. It'd be interesting to see if I might be able to rejuvenate this stuff. I'll actually try that. It's possible this stuff is still usable as clay. I doubt it, but we'll see. All in all, you have to say that structurally it held up remarkably well. There's a little bit of iron staining on the inside. You can see that that tape definitely created kind of a lamination effect. So that's it for my chimney. Got a little bit left. There's the bottom of my chimney right there, so I'm headed into the neck. There's my first sign of ore. It's not magnetic, so it's not ore, it's slag, but it's cool looking. You can see that it's obviously melted. I suppose it's possible that that's actually the clay that melted, but it's the right color to be residue from my iron ore. There's more of it. That's clearly that. Look at that. That's cool. And it's glassy and vitrified, like you would expect. As we do this, I want to think of it as kind of an archaeological dig, in the sense that the higher strata are going to be the things that I did later, and the lower strata are going to be the things that I did earlier. So as we go, we're going to go back in time, as it were, in the melt. So this is the artifact of later portions of the melt. Again, I don't think it's actually iron. I think it's just melted slag. And it's cool looking too. You do have to admit it's cool looking. Okay, so that's the chimney portion removed. I'm moving down onto the neck now. You can see right here that there's a fair amount of accreted ore. A lot of slag here. This is a drip of that slag. And it is magnetic, so it's definitely got some iron in it. It's clearly been melted. It's got bubbles, so we'll save that piece and take it all inside and look later. Plenty of melted stuff on the inside of the neck. This is starting to look really pretty substantial, actually. And it came off in one piece. It's very light. If it's got iron in it, there's not much. A lot of stuff didn't really do what I was thinking it was going to do. I have no idea what I'm looking at here. It was sitting in there like this. It's definitely got some iron still on it. Melted and dripped. We'll take it all inside and look at it. I'm anxious to get further down into where the really hot stuff was going on, because this stuff is all stuff that happened later, kind of toward the end as the fire was petering out. This is probably two successive melts here. One melt, slag, another melt. So we'll take the collar off. I don't know if you remember, but toward the later edges of the melt, there was lots of leak here. We should be getting down into the meat of it, into stuff that was exposed to a lot more heat. The further we go, the hotter this stuff is going to get. I mean, it's fairly clear I was able to do a lot of melting on some of this stuff. It's all very light. It's all still stained with iron, but I don't think I could actually say I have iron here. It's all very melty, and it's all pretty much the same, but there's nothing here that tells me sort of pathognomonically, if you will, that I actually really produced iron out of that stuff. That's all iron powder. There's plenty of that left. Some of this stuff has got at least some iron in it. There's a tremendous amount of unmelted iron powder in here. I think I may have overloaded this thing. In fact, I'm almost certain that I overloaded this thing. I was so anxious to get enough iron ore in there. I'm pretty sure I put too much iron ore in there. Well, let's just keep digging down stratum by stratum, going further and further back in smelter time. You know, it is funny, I didn't really use very much charcoal. I only used about a bag. I had all that charcoal and I didn't need it. That I can't reuse. That's no longer clay. That's china now. Oh, look at that. Again, I don't know what I'm looking at, but whatever I'm looking at is kind of cool. So when this was like this, I couldn't get air from this pipe to come up to the top. I could only get air from this pipe. I think we know why. Look at that big shelf of stuff which had accreted by my air pipe here. So clearly I got a big accretion of something. I'll just have to take it inside and decide what the hell it is. This I'm going to have to look up and see what a bloom looks like, because I don't really know. My guess is that what I'm looking at is a bloom. It's supposed to be a combination of agglomerated iron and slag, and that looks like what I have. So I'm guessing I got me a bloom here. I've got a lot of powder that did not melt and become part of the bloom or something. See, it's all iron powder. I'm really amazed by the amount of unmelted iron powder that's in here. I mean, this thing was hot. It's shocking to me that there's so much unmelted iron powder. And this could be from the later portions when the thing was no longer hot. Maybe it just all kind of sifted down in there. I was reading that early bloomeries were small and they tended to produce 5 kilograms of ore or less, 5 kilograms of iron or less. And, you know, I put probably closer to 10 kilograms of ore in there, and if it was of any sort of volume at all, there's a pretty good chance that I overloaded the capacity of this thing. I think the one thing I know that I did wrong was that in my worry that I didn't have enough iron ore, I decided to go ahead and put the rock in. And I'm really regretting that I made that decision. I think that was the wrong decision to make. My point on doing all this is that if small pieces of actual iron fell to the bottom of my bloomery, they're going to be in this dust. So I'm just going to screen it all and see if anything pops up that looks likely. I'm starting to feel like I might have had a whiff here. I'm sure that what I'm sifting is actually half ash and not just unmelted rock powder, because there's so much melted rock powder. But frankly, I'm just not feeling very good about my results. I think at this point I'm milking a dry cow, as my grandfather would say. So probably time to go inside and take a closer look at this stuff and see if I can figure out what I've got here. So I put some of this in water just to see what it looks like when it's not covered with dust. And I still have no idea what it is. Kind of cool looking. So as far as this, I'm going to use the same principle to separate some of this stuff as I used for making clay. Essentially, I'm going to pour this in here, and then the stuff that floats gets scooped off first, and then I'll separate the rest of it by density. It's still a huge agglomeration of stuff, but it's a start. Friends, it's a wondrous thing in that I've managed to use this and this to convert this to this. The only fly in the ointment is that I don't know what this is, because my object obviously was to smelt the ore into iron. I believe what I've done is melt the ore, but I'm not sure I smelted it. So melting means I got it hot, so it's drippy and bubbly, but smelting it means that I reduced the ore to iron by a chemical reaction, and I'm not sure I did that. It's still magnetic, very weakly magnetic, and it's obviously got iron in it. But the problem is I don't find any actual iron. I just find iron dust. So I have to admit, I think I'm going to come to a really uncomfortable conclusion here at this rate, which is that I don't know if I've actually smelted iron or not. All I know is I've melted iron ore. The only way I'm going to know I actually smelted iron is if I find a chunk of iron rather than finding just bunches of little pieces of magnetic crushable goo. And as unfortunate as that is, it means I'm really going to wind up ending this episode with still not knowing, because it's going to take me a long time to decide if there's any iron in any of this stuff. I think in essence that's going to leave me asking you very unsatisfyingly to consider liking and subscribing, and perhaps tell your friends what a complete goof-off I appear to be, since I have no idea if I actually smelted iron or not, despite all the work that I did. And I honestly don't know when I'm going to be able to tell you whether or not I did, because I'm going to have to work with this for a while to figure out if there's anything I can do with this stuff. So while you are out there having a nice day, I will be here trying to figure out what the hell is going on with my iron.